You can now listen to episodes of the Flying Monkey podcast anywhere podcasts are available, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and more. You can also watch the video podcast on our YouTube and Rumble channels. Just search the Flying Monkey podcast and make sure to subscribe and share. You're watching the Flying Monkey Podcast.
Okay.
Welcome back to another episode of the Flying Monkey Podcast, and today we have Marianne. How you doing today, Marianne?
I'm good. Thanks, Tommy, for having me on today.
Thanks for coming on. So it's cold and snowy and icy up there.
It is, in fact.
Yeah, well, let's start from the beginning, kind of, so we get, folks can get an idea. So you were married and you had how many children?
I had two boys.
Two boys.
And I was at home. I couldn't do very much working, so I was at home. And unfortunately, the relationship split up. So I was on my own as a single mom, and we'd had an arrangement between myself and their father that was cordial, and it was fine. We didn't have any problems with. He just gave me what we for us as some financial support for the kids, and we didn't go through courts. We were fine. And my parents got involved, and I would say that in that case, it's a little bit of an interesting twist that there's the really angry, disgruntled people or person, unfortunately, who went through and is very angry at life. And they got involved and brought, wanted to redo being parents to my sons. It was rather bizarre. Yeah. And so Children's
Wow.
Aid Society was brought in. And I did at least get to a point where between the two, like they were taking my children no matter what. They didn't have any reasons. There was a false positive. The Children's Aid Society, which is the same as CPS, was in contract with a place called Mother Risk, and they were forcing all parents who'd had their children taken or were in court custody battles to undergo drug testing. I didn't mind because I had one prescription or something, and it's not a big deal. And I got a false positive, and I thought, what the heck's going on? And now it turns out there are thousands of us as parents who are now suing because they gave false positives around from this company, this hospital. And so some parents have gotten some settlements and lost children. So I redid my test to find out there's nothing in me, but it didn't matter. The problem had already happened. So I lost my children as a result, and parental alienation ensued. And I saw how they were taught, going from two boys just like sending me messages on email. But anyway, they could say, "Mommy, please help us get us back from grandma and grandpa's." So they were really turned against me, and that broke my heart. The stories, the saddest stuff. My little boys, I took them everywhere. I took them to races. I was going to take my older one to the fourth World Cup I was going to. It was devastating. And in the midst of that, I separated, and I didn't want anything to do with my family for meddling. And I bought a house, a really nice log home, and I worked, and I had a vehicle, and I was so saddened and trying to fight through it. And I got pregnant with a little girl. And once the family got an idea of it, unfortunately, the circumstances weren't great, such that the father of my child to come didn't want an involvement. And I tried to mitigate the circumstances best I could, but my parents called Children's Aid and the family. They wanted me to give up my child for religious Catholic reasons, value systems. I was just so upset, angry, I wouldn't talk to them, but they managed to get what's called an Amber Alert based on nothing. Like they admitted, came to the hospital to look at my baby being born. Your grandparents have expressed concern. So here, RCAS has tremendous leeway, and they couldn't. I'm not sure whether they sort of rode on the tail skirts of what happened with my sons as a reason, even though they knew that everything had been remedied and there was a problem with they shouldn't have been taken and so on. But at any rate, Children's Aid got into what's called interim custody. And they were able to do that without giving me notice or service or even being at this hearing. So they came to the hospital. Can you imagine the most horrific nightmare for any parent to attend a hospital, give birth, and know that your daughter, your child to be is being preyed upon, and you can't do very much.
That's horrific.
Go ahead.
It's just pure evil. That's crazy. And so I talked to hundreds of parents, and I've read over thousands of cases. I'm just going through what people go through. And like when you were mentioning the drug testing thing, the red flag went up with me instantly. As if, wow, if there's that many false positive tests, are they tainting the tests intentionally to get federal funding, to get to tilt the scales in a certain way? And the same thing goes for when they're taking the kids. It's like you're on a list. You've already they've already got proof. Oh, well, here we got a bad person according to them, and
Yeah.
then they just
Like,
go and they take them more and more and more and more, and they just keep going back after parents. Because I know a few parents that the child services have taken their kids, and then they have another one, and they take them and take them and
yep.
take them, and
Yep.
it's just insane.
Yep. It's like a red flag. I mean, I've often wondered whether that's because a check is cashed and they have to balance the books. I'm sorry, but I see it as a financial situation in the background in some levels, or they see a great opportunity. And the interesting when you ask about the drug test, yes, this it was a little operation of two guys that had this little laboratory. They were using testing that was deemed to be not just inaccurate and giving false positives, as my case, but I knew that was wrong. So I called the lab myself. I said, I'm going to pay. I think I paid almost $1,000. I'd like you to retest. I will be funding. Retest that 6-month period because it doesn't make any sense, and do the next 6 months, because by that point
Yeah.
I knew I had to be safe. So they went ahead and they retested over that period, and they came out with nothing. Just the one you take something to help you sleep from your doctor. That's all we find in it, and some Tylenol for migraines. Nothing, no drug abuse whatsoever. But it's interesting because now, and I have a lawsuit against that hospital, and many parents have.
Yeah. Where do these people come from? How? I'm amazed. How can you do this to people? It's insane. It's totally insane. It goes all back to the money. I mean, they're getting funded from taxpayer dollars to steal people's children and then place them somewhere else, and they get monthly payments. And they
Yeah.
have, and I just read an article that was talking about how they have quotas. They have, the Children's Protective Services have quotas where they have to achieve so many, they have to grab so many kids to get so much funding each month.
They do. Yeah, you're quite correct. I think we can argue that those quotas come as high up as I've seen some materials from the United Nations, and this is why it's particularly discouraging, because if that's being not only allowed but encouraged on a global scale, where do we go to fight with this situation?
Yeah, well, we're seeing a trend of a lot of global
Yeah,
things happening in many different Western countries where they're just everything's backwards. They claim certain things to be protecting and doing things fairly, honestly, and for the best of everybody, but they do the complete opposite. And it's clear as a bell. Like the alienation thing alone is three. Their stats said 300 million worldwide.
yeah,
And so we know they're not that sharp, and they're not that organized, and they don't have stats from all the countries. So it's way more than 300 million. I mean, it's
yeah,
500 or 700 million people probably, and if you add in the CPS cases, I mean, you can get into a billion
yes.
probably.
Oh yes, no, it's quite outrageous. But just to follow on, because my story gets a little bit interesting, because in order to have taken my daughter with absolutely no evidence or anything, they got you need a recipe for this thing to happen. So you've got my family members having their own personal battles with me, and using the weapons of the system to achieve it. That includes my brother and his wife. I don't know why there's misery there, but there was certainly indication. They were all angry at me, even though we have no relationship whatsoever with this woman. But they wanted me to give up my child. I was so frightened, that to the point where I was trying to make arrangements, this family would win out, that I would leave to France and lease out my house or something. But I didn't get that all done, and I wasn't. But I ended up, as I mentioned, they came and took my baby because my parents expressed a concern. That's it. That's all they ever needed. Just one thing. That's all they. It wasn't noticed to be present. I was breastfeeding my daughter at the time, nursing her. I had no idea. So they came in and had a temporary order. Wasn't served. The interesting thing, though, is that they didn't have very much except that, and they went immediately. They built their case as they went along. They separated my child from me immediately, and this is how they gained their case, by having, letting a year and time go by to say, well, we've got her anyway, and we've separated. This is how they actually, this is how, in the end, it's their strategy. So they gained her. I think they allowed us to see each other maybe twice a week for an hour and like I did what I could. So they had what's called a summary judgment motion, where they tried to get her earlier than a trial. And I went and I got very, very expensive lawyers, and I paid through them. Like, I lost my house. I paid at $800 an hour. It's my child, my daughter. And they went in, and I was successful. They dismissed the children's aid motion, which is almost unheard of. And you know what their argument was? She breastfeeds rather than bottle feeds, and and we think there's an awkwardness and the bond between mother and daughter.
That's what a
Okay.
normal bond is. You're supposed to breastfeed. You're not supposed to bottle feed.
I know. They were just absolutely cheesy. I was just begging them at some point, why can't I have my daughter back? Please, what's wrong? And I remember talking to the children's aid supervisor, and he was just a businessman. Well, we want to try again at it. With what? And then they just started to make it up as they went along. So but the interesting thing is that within a year, they waited, another year went by. They tried separating my daughter and I for about 5 months. I paid, this is where I really went bankrupt. I paid up to $45,000 for a lawyer to at least get me back visitation. Just Children's Aid has all the power. So I had my second summary judgment motion. They were trying for a second kick at the can. And here's where it got interesting, because the recipe is not only a bad family that starts it, a terrible system, but a rogue lawyer. This is bizarre, but here's the interesting part in it. I went to Ottawa. Well, I went to Ottawa, and meanwhile, it's been a year and a half. I'm fighting nonstop. So I lost my house. I went foreclosed on me, lost my car, wasn't able to work because of the stress. I moved up to Ottawa with my aunt and uncle. I needed to get a lawyer. Now, I wasn't able to get the same caliber as lawyer because I now had very little to no funds. What I did know is that you have to get competing parental assessments. They'd gotten one on me, which I was forced to attend, where they said the same thing. There's an awkwardness in the bond. Your daughter rejects you. Okay. Stuff like that, basically. And I went and hired and contracted with a psychologist, child psychologist in Montreal, who said, return the daughter. So I had competing. So I'd waited out. And I went to this lawyer, is currently deemed a dangerous offender in prison, incarcerated as a serial pedophilia, and he was admitted to the bar. This is where it gets really interesting. So I didn't know this. I was looking for a lawyer in Ottawa, and I was told that this guy was pretty, was recommended. So I went and met him. He wanted to meet in the evenings. I found that very strange. I'm very, very strange. The second evening, yes, there was an assault. I was beside myself. I didn't know what to do because everybody wanted my daughter. I had my own family wanting to get this adoption. I've got Children's Aid knowing that they're going to make a huge profit on adoption. I had every predator, and I was just shaking in my boots. So at any rate, I kind of sensed, because I was rather repulsed by the whole thing, that he was really angry at me, and I thought he might just sabotage his case. And I was scared. Like I was saying, please, any kind of thing I could do in text. I hope you're good. Please don't, do a good job, whatever you can do. I was just panicking because we had to attend within a week the motion. I had a very good case because the Children's Aid parental assessment was not really admitted. So it was only mine. So I really knew it was going well. And Kuhn kept saying to me, you should get into an adoption. I said, are you kidding me? Like, it was the most bizarre stuff. And I said, I can understand in some circumstances. First of all, I would never defraud the court by pretending to do a fraud adoption, first of all. And secondly, I've got a very good case. You go in there and fight. Why are you doing this? I didn't understand it. But you see, he makes money. If my own lawyer does me in, he makes money, right? So out of revenge or spite or whatever, 3 days before to attend, he forged an affidavit. He forged my signature on an affidavit and served it to the opposing counsel. And in that affidavit, it claimed that I wanted to give up my daughter. I was happy with it, deem her a child in need of protection, Never anything to do with her. Done. This is what the affidavit says.
Whoa.
He forged my signature forged. He notarizes it, sends it 6 minutes before I arrived that day. He's gone. So he serves, then he does a plan of care, another forged document where he writes up that I want to give up my child to my brother and his wife, and gone. I want nothing to do with her. My parents will have visits with her. It's the most ludicrous thing and make you want to vomit. The extreme opposite what they were trying to get. So I didn't know he'd done this, and I arrived at his office. There's nothing to sign. So I hoped that he'd get his stuff together in 4 days when we appeared. So I didn't understand what's happening. And then he forged a consent to adoption form. So the long and the short is he lied to me, told me not to attend court. Well, I was thinking he was going in to fight. He said there was a negotiation. I said, great, what is it? And he wouldn't let me read content pages. He wanted me to sign a document. And stupidly, I trusted my lawyer. Stupidly, he's wearing his robe, and I thought he wouldn't lie. He wouldn't let me read the content pages, said there wasn't enough time. I was down the hall and said, just sign this. And I said, well, I need to know what the document says before I sign. So I trusted him. I don't know why, absolutely foolish. And he said that this is an agreement for Children's Aid Society to pull out and close the file. And she would return to you via your aunt and uncle, and they would be sort of intermediary steps to place her. And she's coming back to you. So I agreed. And then he took all those papers. He kept me in the waiting area, went into the court, said I didn't need to go in. It'd be a few minutes and you get your daughter back. This is what he said. You're getting your daughter back. He forged my initials on the content pages, took the whole thing into a court, and they presented it in my absence as I agreed to a full adoption, crown wardship, no access. And meanwhile, I'm thinking my daughter's coming back. And you would think that would be rectified by the system. Mr. Kuhn was found, left the country shortly thereafter with a search or with arrest warrants, but nobody believed me. Everybody said to me, just appeal it. I went to the police. Ottawa just kind of wanted to, bury it. I said, my signatures are forged. They wanted to root it as a civil matter. They shipped my daughter out to, CAS shipped her out to Calgary, Alberta without the government permission or my knowledge. Well, I was appealing, trying to do what I could. And that's when they had it, because all they could do in the end is say, she's already settled. We got her, therefore we keep her. And by the time I was heard, I had gone to several police agencies. I went to a Quebec agency, Merci des Collines. They did a full-fledged investigation and deemed this was a terrible child abduction, and, involving the family who had her.
Yeah.
And see, they sent an alert out to Calgary, Alberta police, do something. And Calgary, Alberta police buried it, ignored me, degraded me. I saw the emails and said not to bother my brother, and because they were adopting their niece, the stolen child. And to this day, they are still burying it. And I'm now challenging the Alberta government. And I'm beside myself how such things can happen.
That's a lot to absorb. So your daughter's been adopted by your brother?
Correct. On this fraudulent consent. Correct. So Alberta allowed all this.
So
Yep.
who, and then so in Canada, I assume it's the same here, and people don't realize that people get money for setting up and doing an adoption. So the agencies that facilitate an adoption get federal funding, correct?
They do. I think they did this privately, but it's an interesting point because I've been on this brigade to try to get her back for 11, 12 years. And what I have noted is that at different levels, they make money. So at the court level, I'm to understand that when they did that in my absence, endorsed for the consent of adoption, the judge would have made some money. There would have been court costs awarded. So there's money there. And I'm trying to get a hold of that data so I can see. Then there's money made for the Children's Aid Society as a collection service to make the adoption agency, the government of Alberta. And I don't know what happens with her, what's called her security, social security. That may be being drained as well.
The court-ordered psychologists that get paid, and the lawyers get paid, and everyone's on this list, and they call the same group of people to perpetrate these same, basically, in my opinion, would be called criminal actions against, citizens of the world, and it's just, but they all benefit financially, and it's just a job, and it's over and over. It's the same cookie cutting machine that they do the same thing over and over again. And that's crazy. So now just to back up a little bit, how old are your sons now?
My sons are now 24 and 26.
Okay. And so Do you have a relationship with them now?
Barely anything. I'm lucky if I see my older son once a year.
Okay.
Um, he barely ever texts me. They were trained, and I think by negative reinforcement. And I don't know, even though they were brought up with their father, it might be from certainly my parents. I've seen what you call the environment where this happened. Um, they were trained so badly to think so little of me, to be ashamed and angry at me. It's my fault.
Yeah.
So I barely have conversation. I was able to take him out for lunch last year. That's about my younger one, whom I had a very close relationship. Nothing. He completely rejected me. He's angry. They're both one finished university degree, the other's doing their business degree. They want nothing to do with me. So that once that alienation starts, you're done. Like you're not going to pick it up when kids turn 18.
Yeah.
It's dead.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because a lot of these parent groups, I see these people just relax, wait till they get old enough, they'll figure it out. And I just get so, I don't know, it kind of pisses me off to see that. It's just so, it's like a mechanism, just like all these things they say they're going to do one thing and they do the opposite. It's just a mechanism to make you back off and
Yeah.
allow this abuse to continue and just say, hey, just cool it, kick back over there. It'll be okay down the road. And it won't, because there's a couple things in play is that, there's the programming, the suggestibility of it all. And the training, that just even it could be even subtle. Oh, your mom or your dad, they're no good. They don't want to see you. And
Yep.
just even in conversations with other people in the room, those kids hear that, and it could be non-direct even, and it's
Yeah.
being actually directed to them over and over again. And then they get this guilt and anger at themselves that they don't realize that they have,
Yeah.
because they're not. They know, deep rootedly down inside, we know we love our parents, and that attachment was there, and
Yep.
they've damaged that attachment. So there's guilt that they don't realize they have, and anger at themselves for the behavior that the way they treat you, and that
Yep.
makes them feel guilty, and they can't even deal with that or even realize it's there. And then there's the anger that was taught to them and created in them to act a certain way, to reject you and to be disrespectful. So it's pretty heavy duty stuff, and it's traumatizing, and it's abusive to everyone involved that's dealing with it. It's crazy. So
It
how
is.
old's your daughter?
My daughter is now 13. So I have
Okay.
denied, I haven't seen her in like, was it 11, 12 years? I've been not denied every type of any form of communication. I begged, I sent flowers to her little sweetheart on her birthday, anything I could do, please. I begged them. Nope. They're absolutely cruel. And I would think in that situation, that she's been hearing the message, don't go near your mother. I don't know what variation of story they're giving her.
Yeah,
Um,
you'll never know.
but they'll
But
never know. But she's not going to, just like many of them, they're not just going to come around at 18. They're never going to, because the training that takes place,
no,
because so,
they've
yeah,
been trained and taught to believe something that's not true, and it's crazy. I mean, because any responsible adult would never let any of this happen. So
no,
who are these people in the courts? Who are these lawyers? Who are these children protective people? I mean, really, what's wrong with them all? I mean, there's something seriously wrong. And then a family member, I mean,
oh,
I've had, distant cousins and stuff where a parent was in bad shape and they had to go through some stuff. And other family members said, "Hey, no, send the little guy or little girl over here," and they raised
yeah,
them, but they never would not. I mean, you could say, okay, even you know if there was an issue with drugs or whatever it would be, the
yes,
situation, they never let they never cut off the relationship between the parent. They were there to help, and as family, we're supposed to love each other and take care of each other and protect each other. And so, I mean, it's shocking to me that they wouldn't even allow you to talk to her, see her, or know, or because you want to instill love in children, and you want to instill respect in children so that they grow up to be good people. And all this that's happening is the complete opposite. You're instilling hate and cruelty and teaching that to these children to go out into the world and be hateful and cruel and mean and hurt others. It's sick. It's just sick.
but better way than to place the child with the parent who's abusive and angry and training them to do this, and or however that's happening. But in most cases, it's in a parental alienation system situation. You're actually getting the abusive parent, so it's an inverse. You're putting the child in in this, the court
Yeah.
is not, and
No.
horrifying. Our family court system is appalling. I mean, I'm also by profession, I'm a mediator. I won't go into the family court. I think it's like if I go in there, it's like being inside of a crime scene. That's what it feels like, because that's what it is. That's
Yeah,
what it
exactly.
is.
It's funny you say that too, because I've talked to lawyers who they work in other fields, but they're attorneys. Then and they go, yeah, when they found out about the family law court and the whole system, they're like, I'm not. They just I can't get into that. And they don't say why. That really annoys me. That people
No.
are so weak that they can't call it out. When you see someone doing something wrong, I mean, where's your sense of right and wrong and your sense of responsibility? You say, hey, this isn't right. You guys got to cut this crap out or stand up. I even see that in the psychological community with a lot of these, superstar, psychologists for alienation. They refuse to call, you know, a spade or a rock or whatever, whatever you want to call it. They refuse to call out their colleagues to say, look at you. They just say, well, they're not trained enough or they need to learn. No, this is intentional. They know exactly what they're doing. They're not qualified because they were never taught the truth in schools. So they're going to become psychologists and they're not even taught the true, beginnings of psychology, that it's based on behavior. It's not about some floating foo-foo thing in our head. It's
No.
it's our
That
behavior and our emotions, you know. And mental health, that word annoys me a lot. And it
it
gets
does.
used. And same
I
with
think
the
I
word
made
narcissist. It's like,
yeah, I
oh,
made
yeah,
the
it's
point.
overused. Is it
Yeah,
mental? I mean, how do you prove it? How do you can't, and then they give you a 10-question test and say you're cuckoo. How can you do that? You can't. You have no proof. It's just an opinion and it's just a bunch of baloney.
mhm,
Watch somebody and observe somebody and
mhm.
collect data on that behavior and go from this time to that time and you'll see. Actions speak louder than words. Why is that a phrase? Why is that something to be used and to learn, for us to learn and actually know? Because actions do speak louder than words, because people are full of baloney, they lie, and they manipulate things, and it's ridiculous. You just watch it and you see, and we're doing that now. I mean, there's just a collection of millions of parents that have gone through this, and one, whether it's with alienation in family court or it's CPS taking them or hospitals taking them. I mean, there's a few different avenues, but it's the same game plan and the
Yes,
same
it
the
is.
same result. And it's taking children and it's damaging children, it's destroying children and destroying families and
Yep.
their parents. It's abusive, and they're crimes against humanity.
Yes, they
That's
are.
what it comes down to. That's really what it comes down to.
It absolutely is. When you make a good point about the mental health professionals, who probably the only people that have mental health issues would be those people, to be able to do that and hurt somebody and apply these things. That's pretty concerning. But I saw
It
when
is.
they forced me to have what's called a parental assessment by I think it's a social worker and a psychologist. At the only point they're supposed to do a something that's a behavioral like observation, they didn't know what the clue they were doing. This just shows you that they are completely inadequate to do. They were supposed to determine whether there was an awkwardness between my daughter and I. There was a bonding problem. So this is what they did. After having us apart and there's a stress on us, they put us into a room for 45 minutes or an hour, I can't remember, and they observed us with a one of those two-way mirrors. And,
Mhm.
and and they'd separate us. So Padme was feeling stressed. I was feeling stressed in a room with no natural light and this two-way mirror. And Padme, my daughter, was too. She was aware of that mirror, and she cried and cried and screamed and cried. I found out afterwards she had welts on her from her diaper. The foster parent there were welts. So every time I'd pick her up, she'd scream. And at a certain point, it was getting to be really, really creepy to watch us. And the two of us didn't know what to make of it. I said, I'm taking my daughter out of this room because you're going to flunk me anyway. You don't know what you're doing. You don't understand proper um,
Yeah. Well,
attachment. And they,
the bonding is attachment.
yep,
They want to use the word bonding, but they don't understand learning theory
no,
and they don't understand attachment theory.
no, they don't.
But bonding is the attachment, and awkwardness is one of the things of attachment. Familiar. You feel awkward, you feel uncomfortable, but they create that situation. That's what these visitation centers do too. And these,
Ah,
they put you in this uncomfortable situation, so you're gonna be uncomfortable. You're not gonna be acting normal, and you're gonna feel awkward, and that's it takes time and then you adapt and you get familiar, and then you'll attach again. But they have to have you guys together. So, and they separate you, so that's impossible. So it's a rigged. It was a rigged situation for you, and even though they didn't know it, they were, see, someone behind this design of this understands learning theory, and they understand attachment, and they're using it for evil rather than good.
I agree with you on that. I think that they're
and,
very aware. I guess to wrap it up, I have continued fighting. I lost my appeal because they didn't believe me about the signatures. I took absolute forensics that I finally got of handwriting reports, and now they're going, oh boy, they're still trying to conceal it. They're still trying to cover it up. They want me to go away.
yeah.
And they think it's lovely so it's sad, it's sad.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, a lot of parents give up and can't take it anymore. So props to you for fighting, and I think too, there's ways like your sons, maybe somehow you can let them, we can talk later, but there's some adult children that were alienated that are doing a lot of good work and sharing their stories and things like that. So maybe there's a way we can get them to see some of that, and it may not click immediately, but it'll sink in, and hopefully we can get them to loosen up and open up a little bit and see the light. And for your daughter, just keep fighting, and hopefully we can do it. And we got more parents uniting and talking about this and telling their stories. And it's going to come to a head, and it's going to change. We're going to change this. We're going to stop this. And, just big hugs to you. Hang in there. I mean, I'm going through the same as you too. And
Yeah,
it's a few different details, but the same story. So lots of love and hugs and positive, and just keeping connecting with all of us parents that are going through it. And that's probably the best therapy, is we just keep talking and supporting each other, and we work and keep fighting to make this change, because we're seeing it in some places now that there's people are standing up, and we're not taking it anymore, and it's over. This is done. You're just destroying children, and it's just the worst evil you can do.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Well,
Thanks
thank
for
you for
coming on,
having me.
Marianne. Yeah, no, you're welcome. Thanks for coming on and talking, and keep in touch, and we'll check in with you and follow up, and hopefully we'll have some positive news in within the next few months or a year.
Thanks, Tommy.
All righty.
Okay.
You take
Pleasure.
care, okay?
All right. Bye.
No, it's good to talk to you. You take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching the Flying Monkey podcast. Like, follow, and subscribe to our social media sites on Facebook, X, YouTube, Rumble, TikTok, and Truth Social. You can also go straight to our webpage at www.flyingmonkeypodcast.com.